Stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned. I'm here with the coach, John Brent.
And I'm here with the vet, Mr. Ian Griffin. What's up, Ian?
What's going on, coach? So we're trying to get our bearings straight on all this here. This is awesome. So speaking of bearings straight, coach, man, what in the wide world of sports is going on in America on the border? Not a crisis, apparently, but the border.
Yeah, the border is not really a good thing. It's been going on for, I mean, like you and I talked before, this is not day one of immigration. Every president since before, even Clinton talked about, you know, that these guys are illegal and they shouldn't be, you should come a legal pathway here. Obama had one of the best speeches. If you go back and listen to the speech that he gave about illegal immigration and that you shouldn't have, you know, just come here and be forgiven. If we put that speech and just put it on transcript and said it came from Trump, they would break it to pieces. Yeah. But if you take Trump's and give it in Obama's transcript, they'd say, you know, that's a great speech. So it's not a new thing; it's a political thing, and it's become way too politicized. So what's going on down there right now is more people are coming now in March than they did in February. More are coming in March and February than came in January. It's not slowing down.
Right. So I'm gonna back up for me a little bit. And the people that don't know is, you know, I'm married to an immigrant. She came to America from Europe and as an exchange student, and eventually she joined the Army. Still not a citizen at the time. And she did a few years, and then eventually she became an American citizen. And it was not an easy process. I can tell you that. We had our challenges with it. And because we were going to be assigned to Germany, she couldn't be assigned to Germany unless she was an American citizen. It's the way the rules work in the Army. And we had to go to San Antonio and do all the documentation. She had to take her test. Stuff that I'm a history major, things that I would not have known outright. You know, and she had to pledge her allegiance to our country as any person should anyhow, but that's required of an immigrant. But it was not, hey, you're in, we got you, take care of you. She served the Army for 6 years before she became a citizen. I mean, it was not easy. So it's something that holds dear to me because I know the pain I've witnessed is firsthand of what all immigrants have had to gone through in the past, you know, some variant of it. And so now we have, you know, we have a crisis down the border. And I think you're absolutely right, Coach, is the last 4 administrations have grappled with it, but we have really never pushed any decent legislation in regards to immigration through Congress. It has never gotten out of there because it's political suicide for them. And I think, to be honest, you know, at the first of the Trump administration, we had this border crisis, and we have one now, and it is a border crisis, self-inflicted in a lot of ways because he kind of said, hey, Katie barred the door, bring your butts here, we'll take you no matter what. We're going to undo all the past administration stuff. Well, when you make it lawless, everybody will come, and that's what's happened. But what I will say is if there's ever any time to pass legislation, is normally when a president first becomes president, when you have majorities and people are normally willing to compromise during those times. It's just right now, not admitting that there's even a crisis at the border and throwing away your predecessor is eliminating the ability for one side to even compromise. Because if you came in and said, well, you know, we probably should have listened to him on this, and let's put that back in there. And we probably should have done this here on this. Let's put that back in there. You would see compromise. But because you're not even willing to take those steps, there's not going to be compromise. We all know that, you know, because right now it's his way or no way.
Right. Well, one of the questions I'd like to go back just for some information for me, because I know the process that you said that your wife went through is, now she spoke English, you know, so it was one issue. But is that something that when they take a test to come in, there's some kind of test they have to take, correct?
Yeah.
Was there some kind of written test? I mean, if that's in English, or can it be in a different language, or how does that work? Do you know?
So we studied for 3 months on this test, and I will tell you, I was not in the room when she took the test. He had I don't know if he was a consular or what he was, but he had a little foyer area that was nice, very nice office, and he had his office, and she went in there and took the test right there. but I believe he just simply asked the questions
in English.
Yes, in English.
But we don't. What I'm trying to find out is, and maybe we need to look into this because I was asked this recently and I never clarified it, is if you're a person coming here from another country and you're becoming a citizen. I'm not talking about you just get here day one. We know a lot of people get here day one, don't know the language. You haven't assimilated at all or with anything at that point. But to become a citizen, I believe you're supposed to take the test that they give in English. But what I'd like to find out now, because of the times that have changed, is that still the case? I'd like us to find that out. If somebody down below knows the answer to that, please tell us. If someone that has gone through that process, because I was asked that by a student recently, and I thought, it was a simple answer. Of course, you have to take it in English. But because things change over the last, 3 or 4 decades, I don't know if that is the case anymore.
So one thing I will say is she, when she became a citizen, my wife, and she got her certificate of naturalization, she was able to maintain dual citizenship, American citizenship in Germany. As she progressed in the military, in the Army, she had to have a secret clearance. In order to have the secret clearance, she had to denounce the dual citizenship.
Wow.
And so when she got that, so that's something that at the time is, if she wanted to advance, pretty much, you're going to have a secret clearance. And if you got to have a secret clearance, you're going to have to be a solely citizen.
Now, to me, that sounds a very simple. If you're an American and you're in the military, to me, that seems like a very simple request. But because of the times that we live in, just for a second, I thought, wow, I bet there's some that are going to think, why would you have to renounce your citizenship to Germany or the Yemen or wherever? And if because people believe nowadays that, and I guess it's a weird way for me to say it, that America shouldn't make you do something just for America. It's a crazy time. So, I don't think that's a crazy thing that was asked of her, but it should be asked.
I don't think, and it wasn't crazy in my mind either. And she understood it, but I will tell you, it was an emotional decision.
Oh, I could imagine.
Because, German people are very proud, as anybody from wherever they're from, they're very proud, And so she was very proud. And that was she goes, I'm giving up part of my identity. And I'm like, no, honey, you're not. I mean, come on. You're not doing that.
Well, in reality, I don't believe that. I mean, think about it. If you become let's just say you're a Mexican citizen and you decide you want to come to the United States, you come over, you come through the proper channels. We're going to look at it that way. And you become a citizen in 7 or 8 or 9 years. We don't ask you as a country to renounce your citizenship to Mexico. You actually can have dual citizenship, and there's no issue with that. But if you're in the military, we're asking that differently, and we should understand that. And hopefully that won't change going forward with the progression of things, that are going now. Hopefully it won't. Yeah. Okay, now back to your crisis. I'm sorry, I got totally off on VP on that.
Yes.
It is a crisis.
It is.
If you were listening to the media just a year ago, they were using it as there's a crisis at the border. There's a crisis with the cages. There's a crisis with the wall. There's a crisis with people coming here in droves and we doing nothing about it. But not only is the same thing happening, it's actually increased in volume, but the media is not using the word crisis. They're terrified to say that Harris and Biden have a crisis on their hands. Well, they have a whole lot more than one crisis. They have a few crises, but the media is not only pitching softballs to them, they're actually just kind of pushing it to the side. And that's the difference. And that's why there's so many people on the right were so upset by the way that, like Trump or not, Rhino or Trumpster, whatever you want to say, that Trump was being treated totally different in the media than Obama was. And now you can see it again with Biden and Harris, especially with this crisis that they're not talking about.
Right. So today I released we're talking for Monday, but this is on Friday. I released a Friday's Thought to Ponder. And, I talked about.
Very good. Y'all need to read that.
And I talked about transparency, and I talk about crisis, and the definitions are completely misused in this current administration, whereas they're not used by the English language, and they're not used by how you and I know it, and they're not used by how years of English has been taught or any dictionary, but a crisis at a time of intense difficulty, trouble, or danger is considered a crisis. Intense difficulty. They've used difficulty several times, and I'm going to read what the DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas has said. We are on pace to encounter more individuals on the southwest border than we have in the last 20 years. The situation we are currently facing at the southwest border is a difficult one. Difficult, more than 20 years. I would say crisis. And then if you throw in, we activated FEMA. So in my second to the last job in the Army, I worked with 30SC out of Fort Bragg.
What is the E in FEMA?
Emergency.
What is the E in emergency?
Yes.
So you're gonna,
So
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Just
no, you're good. So I've worked with in the 30SC. We had to coordinate with FEMA. One that was part of our role was to handle 3 disasters at one time in the continental, in the North American continent. That was our role, was to be able to manage 3 disasters at one time, to put a headquarters in one place, manage it, and handle another one in another place, and handle another in another place. And then prior to that job, I worked with the equivalent of our foreign version of FEMA, which is USAID in Liberia. And I will tell you that everything down there fits both of those criteria, which is a disaster or emergency, or bottom line, it's a crisis. And to say that it's more than anything in 20 years, think about how many politicians that are non-Texans that went down to the Texas border from New York and everywhere else to go put their 5-cent viewpoint in and stand in front of a parking lot that wasn't even the place that is at, Exactly. And then if you listen to like the mayor for Mission, Texas, just the other day talked about, said, hey, his people there are petrified. He says they are having break-ins each night, people trying to steal the car, people trying to break into their house. There was I would say a middle-aged lady, maybe somewhere between 30 and 50, that was at her house, and lucky somebody else was there when she got broken into, and they run away, and things of that nature. The governor of Texas stated today, part of what's going on is they're moving them to Dallas, and they're trying to move them to Midland, and now they're going to move them to the states up in north, up around Minnesota and all that other stuff. If we remember what President Obama did with the Somali refugees. He moved them to Minnesota.
Right. Minnesota.
That's how you have the woman Omar, because he built that district from refugees. Right. That's what's going on here. But if you take,
they don't do anything. They don't do anything without an agenda. They don't do anything that, oh my gosh, that just happens.
Let me move them to a red state. Right. Let me move all these refugees to a red state and a place where they can help us overtake that population in voting. But the governor came out and he said, hey, they're moving to Midland, and the facility they want to use does not have compatible running water. One. Second, the people they're trying to move there, over 10% have already tested positive for COVID. He said, so what are we supposed to do? And then I hear we have some people that put their analysis in there. Well, the reason why it's close to a crisis is because of the COVID. Well, excuse me, what the hell? Did we not have COVID for the whole last year? I'm just throwing it out there. But Trump, it was working. And now that you come in and say, Katie, bar the door, let's throw the ball, let's tear everything down, let everybody in. Now it ain't working. Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah. And if you've got a COVID, you have a global pandemic. We've had 535 people die in our country. Believe what you want to or not about that. That's a lot of people. And if you're having the border having more people coming now than they did the year previous, and we're looking at a 20-year high in that, what you're doing is you're putting people into the country that are coming from a place that is not as secure a place that we are with mask mandate at a certain state level, that have proper testing, that have social distancing. They're actually coming in vans of people to come across the border. Maybe this isn't the time to let them in. Maybe it's a time to make that less than. But I want to go back to your 20 year. Let's just imagine. My wife and I were talking the other day that 20 years this year, 20 years ago was 9/11. And if you were to tell me right now that we have a terrorist attack, God forbid, this month, and it's been the worst terrorist attack in the last 20 years since 9/11, that would be a pretty major thing. But now that we say that we've had this and it hadn't been this bad in 20 years because the president is not Trump, the media is just letting that go.
They are.
At 20, if you have 19 years of something and the 20th year is worse than the previous 19, that's a problem. That's a crisis. FEMA, the emergency, and when you said FEMA, because they were asking for help from FEMA, I'm thinking, why don't you call in FEMA if it's not an emergency when actually part of the word of FEMA means emergency? Right. Emergency is a crisis. A crisis is an emergency. They're moving words around to protect this idiot president that they wouldn't do with the last idiot president. I'll just be honest. At times he acts like an idiot, but they're doing it different in the media.
Yep, they're trying to protect him for let's face the fact. Let's call it what it is. He made a bonehead decision that during his campaign, he said, pretty much he invited everybody to come across. And now he's still standing by and he's tearing down every policy. And he's not tearing down just Trump's policies. He's tearing down policies of the last few presidents.
Well, someone high up in the Mexican government, it might even been the president, but somebody high up this would call him the what? The migrant president.
Yeah, it was Biden. Yeah, it was the Mexican president.
It wasn't Trump saying that at CPAC. That was the president of Mexico.
Well, there's two things there in regards to that. He called him that, yes. But the second thing is we're not fully appreciating our neighbors because our neighbors had to go through a lot to help this also. And President Trump worked that out with the Mexican president to keep them south of Mexico was the whole deal. Now what you're going to have is you're going to have a twofold problem because just the other day they released that the ones that were coming over and just in one day were coming over from 39 different countries. Whoa, 39 different countries. Think about that. Think about that. That's not Mexico. They're funneling through Mexico. So now you have a twofold problem. You have a problem in America that you have somebody that comes over that we're going to release till we make the decision on that cannot work legally and cannot be here legally, but we're going to let them stay here. So now they're going to be a parasite on society. And right now we're talking about flying them. Who's paying for flying them up to the northern states? And then Mexico has the same problem because they migrated through Mexico. If they chip off and say, we're just going to stay in Mexico, now they're having the same problem as people that don't belong there are now having to find a way of life to live there when they don't have the means to do it.
All right. I mean, the whole thing is crazy. It's like it's a political thing the year before an election. Steve Bannon, which I don't agree with a lot of Steve Bannon. I think he's very, very radical right. But he said in one of the documentaries called America's Divide about how Trump got elected was when they realized that the major issue that would get Trump elected wasn't these great policy issues, it was immigration. And the reason for it, if everyone, it's a hot button. You're either for immigration, you're against it, but it's never been solved, as we're talking about.
Yeah.
What Joe Biden has done is we have more kids in detention now than we had 6 months ago.
Right.
And that was one of the things they made Trump look like he was the devil.
But they ain't advertising that all now.
They're not advertising at all. But what happens is when that comes out, well, because of the previous administration's procedure and process and policy, then there's nothing we can do about it. So we just have to keep stacking them.
That's what Nancy said today. Nancy, she came out and said, well, it's different than that day how they've been treated. And it's just, we're just overcoming this previous policy. No, what you're doing is you said, throw the previous policies, all of them away, not just President Trump's, and Katie bar the door and let everybody come in, and you created a disaster. Right. You did that. You know, let's don't blow into a bent horn and try to make music out of it. Because that's what it is.
Right. And one of the major things that all Democrats said for the last couple of years is President Trump will not take responsibility when he's wrong, which he wouldn't. Yep. But they're doing the same thing. They're not taking any personal responsibility.
So what I'll say right now is President Biden, the Democratic Party, and the whole media are all wrong as three dogs you know what right now.
Yeah.
And they look like they're all humping a basketball or a football right now instead of doing something constructive for our nation. They look like flat out fools. They look like exactly what China called us just the other day. We look like hypocrites.
Well, we are hypocrites. And the thing is, all most people wanted was just anybody but Trump. I mean, what you have here is you got people that voted for someone that is not a better politician. They're not a better president. They're not a better administration. But what they are is, if you voted for Biden, you voted for Biden because you were anti-Trump, and now you're stuck with him. So all you have to do is you have to put your head in the sand, and you have to put it down there and go, oh, I can't see anything, because if you actually talk about the policies, then you got to say they're wrong. If you don't say they're wrong, then you're a hypocrite. China wasn't wrong.
Right. So, Coach, I think we covered it pretty well. We want to hear some comments from everybody, and we want to know. Let us know about the policy in case we were wrong. You know, whether you have to do it in English or not. But we want to hear about it. Yeah. And anything else you got in regards to this, we want to know, because we just like for it to be straight. And I'm all for immigration. I just want it done by a legal means, not a non-legal means.
And before we get off it, this is going to drop first thing Monday morning.
Yep.
Tonight, if you see this morning or sometime throughout the day, if you're at work or at lunch or whatever, tonight, jump up at 8 o'clock Central Time. We're going live. We've got two military people, two great Americans that want to get on here with us. They're probably going to teach me something. I hope they teach me something. If they don't teach me something, then they must be dumb as a stump, because I need a lot of teaching. But anyway, they'll be on tonight at 8 o'clock Central.
Awesome. Well, hey, Coach, from the coach
to the vet.
Stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned.